Hello, I'm Kathy Wagner, Director of Horticulture at BCC, and welcome to your wreath decorating, to-go, at-home, virtual wreath extravaganza. So I think we're gonna have tons of fun, even though we can't be in person, and I am ready to go and get you in the Christmas spirit. So it's time first to unpack your box. You've got in there a beautiful 26-inch diameter mixed greens wreath. So you've got some Fraser fir, you've got a couple pine cones, you've got this Port Orford cedar, which has the nice golden tips. You've got some berry juniper. So lots of fun stuff happening on our wreath. You can see this one's got a little bit of wonkiness to it. I specifically chose ones that were a little wonky to do for the demo so that I can help solve, problem solve any of those kind of shape challenges that you might find on your wreath. So we want to get our station set up so you have an easel with your kit. And you'll note, and then we want to get our wreath on the easel. The back side of it, it actually had a little tag here, but there is a wire hanger if you'd like to use that. If when you hang it that way, you feel like maybe that's not the best angle to hang your wreath because it has sort of a heavy side or something. I've also included a chenille stem in there, aka a pipe cleaner, that you can attach to your wreath in whatever spot you think might be the best hanging location. So I'm going to get this guy up on my easel. And I've noticed with him, we've got a little bit of a top heavy situation here. So I'm just going to work on rearranging the greens. Everything with your wreath, remember, is made, it's all twisted in one continuous wire. So the plus side of that is that you can sort of wiggle your greens into place if they've shifted or if they're not quite laying the way that you want them to. And so I'm just gonna narrow this down a little bit. Try to line these up. I might spread these out a little bit. And in a worst case scenario, you can always do a little clipping with your garden shears. So not too bad. And I'm going to go ahead now and get started with my decorating items, which I'm going to lay out and organize on my workspace. Okay, so now I have all my supplies laid out to make my Berry Merry wreath. I've got everything sort of organized by type, and I have selected this really pretty red and gold bright colored bow. So on this one and on your wreath, you might want to look first for, you know, are there any weak spots that we have problems to solve, or where it would benefit from the help of a big bulky wreath. So I think on this wreath, I'm going to put it, thinking of it like a clock face, I'm going to put it right around 1, 2 o'clock up here on the corner, because it has just a little bit of a thin spot there. So I'm going to tease it through my greens, twist it around in the back, and that'll be sort of the start to our wreath. So by getting the bow on first, that's the big element on our wreath. The next elements we're going to use, we're kind of going from size. So we want to put the next biggest elements on the wreath, because if the spacing on those isn't quite right, it kind of throws off the whole wreath, and it's the most visible thing when you're looking at the wreath. So I like to get those bigger elements on first and kind of evenly space them around the wreath. So I just want to touch on the fact that when we're talking about the wreath, I like to think of it in 3 rings, 3 layers of decorating. So you've got the inner ring here with the space and sort of the edge of your greens. You've got a central ring right on the center of the face of the wreath. And then you've got this outer ring where you can get a little bit spritzy around the edge. So for our large element on this wreath, we have big gold pine cones. So we're going to start by spacing those evenly around the wreath. It already has a few pine cones, but we're going to use these almost like, there are 4 of them, so you're trying to create almost like a 5-piece arrangement with 4 pine cones and 1 bow. So the bow becomes sort of your 5th large element. So I'm going to now space these evenly around my wreath. With the glue gun, I'm going to apply a pretty ample amount of glue to the bottom of these pine cones because they are a little bit heavy, and we are going to want to hold these on the wreath for a little while. Also, when I'm doing my glue, just a little pro tip for you, I usually give it a little swirl right after I'm done, and that helps to catch those spider webs that might be on your wreath. Okay, and I'm noticing my pine cone down here is having a little bit of a struggle, so don't be afraid if something's not quite sticking on right to just re-glue it or relocate it. And that's what I'm going to do right now. I think it's just a little too floppy trying to attach it to that juniper greens, so I'm going to just pull pull it right off and re-glue it. Don't be afraid to take the time to make it right, because if you're anything like me, you will notice it every time you look at the wreath, if it's not in the right spot or if it's kind of droopy. So don't be afraid to just rip it off and glue it till it's right. So that's what we've done here, much better. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a ring around the outside edge with my various magnolia leaves. So we've got some really pretty sort of verdigris looking green and gold magnolia leaves. We've got a beautifully preserved dark natural magnolia leaf, and we have some gold magnolia leaves. So we're going to take each of these around the ring, around the outer ring, and space them evenly. So I'm going to start with my big green leaves. Don't be afraid to put glue on the front side of these and then just tuck them into the back and sort of sandwich them into the greens. That's usually how you'll get the best stick on the outside ring. Remember that these are kind of linear, and your wreath has a linear pinwheel effect to it. So whichever way you see those greens kind of going, that's the direction you want your leaves to move around your wreath. I'm going to kind of pair my green ones with my gold pine cones. And that way I'll be able to space my gold leaves. I'm just going to put one on to show you in between my gold pine cones, and that's going to bring that gold tone evenly around the wreath. So I'm going to continue now with my green leaves. Now I'm going to continue with my gold magnolia leaves. And now I have just the right space between those for my dark green magnolia. I think it's nice to incorporate some of these more naturalistic elements to the wreath, because we don't want to lose the fact that this is a natural greens wreath. So having some of these natural elements, natural pine cones, natural preserved magnolia, sort of grounds it in nature. And remember, we don't want to neglect the area right behind our bow, because it can be seen from all sides as you're coming up to the door, or if you're walking, if it's along a window or a wall. So you want to make sure that everything goes the whole way around. Okay, now we have our magnolia leaves going the whole way around the wreath. Now we'll move on to a little bit of glitz and glam on this one of our Berry Mary, with some nice glitter sparkled cedar. I'm going to put this right in between my gold pine cones on the face of my wreath. So we'll get some nice sparkle right on the face. In this one, I've got a pine cone kind of right where I want to put this. So I might just sort of tuck it in and behind the pine cone so that I can still utilize that natural pine cone that was already there, but you just have to kind of make it work with your design elements. So my glittered cedar is still in the right place, but it's tucked in behind that pine cone. So again, with these glittery elements especially, it's important to make sure that they're sort of tucked into your greens, not just sitting on the face, and that way it won't become overwhelming how glittery it is. We just want a little spritz of sparkle. So the next element I'm going to do is this antique gold bay leaf. So it's got a nice patina to it. We're going to put that around as well. It's another linear element. I'm going to actually have this, because we've got all the magnolia leaves, which are much larger around the outside edge. This is going to be a really nice foil for the inside edge of the wreath. Still has the foliage element, still has the right shape, but it's a little bit smaller scale, just perfect to be peeking out from that inner ring of our wreath. And because it is another gold element, I'm going to kind of space it between my pine cones, angling it actually a little bit in so that it really sprays into the center ring of the wreath, and you can really notice it in the silhouette. So you can really see how those leaves play into the center of the wreath. Now I'm going to add a little bit of this slightly gilded holly leaf. Again, this is not a very glittery element. This is not probably something you would even see from a distance, but it adds texture when you're seeing it up close, and it harkens to natural materials that might be in your wreath. So even though it isn't a natural holly leaf, which is very hard to maintain in a wreath, they tend to dry out and shrivel up, but it still has that texture and the feel of a little sprig of nature. Okay, and now it can't be berry merry without some berries, so let's throw some berries on here. And now I'm going to add my larger berries, which do have more of a linear form to them, so I'm going to make sure that I follow my pinwheel pattern as I add these layers. And now, just for a little bit of extra glitter, we have, to replicate sort of and repeat that shape of our berries, we have some cute little gold beads that we're going to use like ornaments around the wreath. And I'm going to kind of dot these. Some will go more on the inside, some will go more on the outside, wherever I need a little bit of gold. And there you have it, a very Merry Christmas wreath. I'm sure yours looks just as fabulous, and I hope you enjoy it. I hope you had fun doing this. So have a very merry, safe, healthy Christmas, and we hope to see you at the club again soon.